I want to share a little story about how I've evolved in thinking about what activism is, how I've even become some kind of an activist. I was basically born into it. I was born in 1977 in Washington, D.C. That's where problems go to get bigger. You may have heard of it. And my mother, especially, not as much my father, he just wanted to be with her, so he followed her lead. My mother was quite the activist. She was down with the Pan-Africanist civil rights movement. She took over radio stations. She marched in the streets, and she named me Baratunde, which is a Nigerian name. She is not Nigerian. My father was not Nigerian. Their parents were not Nigerian, nor their grandparents. I like to think that they really wish they could have gone to Africa, couldn't afford it, so they brought it into their house, put it on my birth certificate, and here I am to this day. Yeah. I had, in the beginning, a very simple idea of what activism meant. My mother always taught me to question authority, except for hers. Right. I remember my first protest in high school around the Rodney King verdict. Right, one of those first viral video moments. A bunch of my high school friends and I, we skipped class. We went down to the Department of Justice. We marched and chanted, "No justice, no peace." And it's quite a relief that no one has to do that these days because we made so much wonderful progress. That was 20 years ago. Everything's better now. In high school and college, I worked the student newspaper and started to physically understand the power of media, to raise voices, to shine a light on different issues. And all the while, I'd been exposed to technology. My mother was a computer programmer. She didn't have a college degree. She raised me on her own. This is in the early 1980s. She was basically a hidden figure. And as a child, I didn't know what a computer programmer was. And I found out one day when she came home from work. I was supposed to do my homework and not watch television. And I had a whole foolproof system to make sure I was never busted. I had my own micro-surveillance state running. I would keep one eye looking out the window, and as I saw her approach, turn off the TV, go over to the kitchen table, pop open my books, and be the proud, hard-working son that she thought I was. Except this time she came in, and she didn't come over to me and talk to me about how proud she was of me. She walked over to the television, and she put her hand on it. And she felt the heat generated by her lying son. And that's when I learned that computer programmers are time-traveling wizards sent from the future to deny young latchkey kids an opportunity to distract themselves with propaganda cartoons. It was a painful lesson. It was a very, very painful lesson. But computers were a big deal in our house. I had a computer in my home since age 6. I didn't have a girlfriend in my home until age 20. I'm not saying that's causation. There is a high degree of correlation. All right, let's be real about the data science, okay? Respect science. Another problem we don't have to worry about anymore. And as I've grown, I've gotten a deeper appreciation for and understanding. What's up, balcony? Gotten a deeper appreciation for and understanding of what activism is, who participates, and how. And I think about some examples from my own life. Earlier this week, a man came up to me and he thanked me for a podcast that I had done for just 2 years. It was called Show About Race. It was me as a black dude. It was a guy named Tanner, obviously as a white dude. And a Latino woman named Raquel. And we would rotate the chairs, so that we would have this multilateral conversation about these awkward and painful topics. And this man had taken it really to heart. He joined the board of a private school in his town where he wasn't even a parent to make sure he was in the room, to call them on their bullshit, to gently educate them, to make sure that they understood the ramifications of their decisions and improve them. And they could hear him because he was a rich white dude. He put himself in a room that many of us would not be seen in, invited to, or heard if we were there. And I was amazed that a little podcast that made no money had a different type of impact. It was really, really cool. I think about the recent trend of calling members of Congress, which I jumped onto. And I started live streaming my calls to Congress because I suspected that a lot of people were intimidated by what that felt like, what that looked like. What do you say? Mostly you say nothing. You're on hold for 40 minutes. And so in the hold music, I would put on the Hamilton soundtrack, right? And I would answer people's questions, and I would ask questions. One time, I was trying to call Chuck Schumer, hard to get through to, and somebody in the Facebook Live comments gave me another number of a district office in Albany. So I called the district office in Albany, and I'm like, hey, is this Chuck Schumer? She's like, no, this is Nancy. They gave me the wrong number. But I had a nice conversation with an Albany lady named Nancy. You see, we're building community. When I think about what activism could be, I think about my older sister who came into this world 9 years before me and knows infinitely more. For 20 years, she was a journalist and a newspaper editor, and she left that field to teach yoga in a donation-based studio in the hood in Lansing, Michigan. Now, first of all, I should tell you something about the economic prospects of journalism. That a rising star would teach free yoga to poor black and brown people. I should tell you something. But she said to me she felt more connected to her community by working with people in their bodies, by making this elite, lofty-seeming thing, which is actually grounded in everyday people, accessible to everyday people. And she focuses on trauma-centric yoga for people who, like her, have been survivors of sexual abuse and violence. I think about the work that many people in this room know, the work that my partner Elizabeth leads at Civic Hall Labs with a badass group of ladies. Where's Civic Hall Labs at? See, that's the sound of a badass group of ladies who are bringing these magical technology tools to solve real public challenges that are greater than my need for a burrito in under 30 minutes. Turns out there's other problems to solve, like homelessness and criminal justice reform. I think about my friend Sarah Ullman, who started a group called One Vote at a Time. These are filmmakers, women filmmakers, who made 19 ads for Virginia state-level delegates. 10 of those candidates won 2 days ago to spread the power of that storytelling. So I think about all that, and I get excited, and I get nervous. And what makes me nervous is that I think we need to be careful to make sure we continue to define activism in an expansive and inclusive way. We had a very narrow idea that the internet was all good in the beginning, that it gave everybody a voice in a community. And then we realized, oh, shit, it gives everybody a voice in a community. And if you're a closeted gay teen, that is awesome. You find out it gets better. But if you're a conspiracy theorist who think FEMA's coming to behead your Christian child, you should be alone. Thank you for loneliness. And I think about those of us who have labeled ourselves activists and want to close the gate behind us, want to act as a sort of woke police, deciding who's in and who's out. Want to use fancy terminology we think we have exclusive rights to, like intersectionality. I love the idea that we are more than one thing, that we are our gender and our race and our backgrounds and our economic position. But it turns out everybody can be intersectional. It's not just progressive. That's how you get white supremacist rallies in Charlottesville. That's how you get men's rights activists and misogynists and economic nationalists and neckbeard enthusiasts all gathered in one place. That is intersectional as hell. It's not just for the left. So I'm glad that Witness exists. I'm glad that it was an early organization understanding the power of video. I am more glad that it's an organization that doesn't assume that just because a tool is available, people will use it to build beautiful things. They need to be taught. There need to be ethics. There need to be guidelines and some sense of value. So when you're talking to your neighbor, that's activism. You're building community. When you are moving your money out of a too-big-to-fail bank and supporting a credit union, that's activism. When you are getting a massage, that's activism. Sure, look, they promised 40 acres and a mule. I'll take a spa membership all day, every day for every black person, free massages. That's my platform. It's a universally supportable platform. So I just want to thank, again, everybody who put this event together. I want to thank all of you for supporting a powerful organization that has a deeper understanding of what the power of these tools are and why it's important to not just embrace them, but to embrace them consciously, cautiously with open minds, open hearts, and open eyes. I'm Baratunde Thurston. Thank you so much. Happy birthday, witness.